You know, there's plenty of times when most of us have a day or a moment when we want to give up. You know, we're tired, we're dirty from a day's work. We might have been working on something for some time and it doesn't look like it's coming together. You know, some of the biggest figures in the Bible, they had their moments too. If you look at the Old Testament, you have a bloke called Elijah, what they call one of the major prophets. And, you know, he had to perform this miracle of bringing fire down from heaven in front of priests of another religion. And, you know, he absolutely demonstrated that the God that, you know, that we believe in was real. And then straight after that moment, it was completely spent and wanted God to take him to heaven. And, you know, he was, you know, in that moment, he was obviously exhausted. And sometimes we get moments like that. We can have these incredible moments where we're successful, but, you know, exhaustion doesn't seem to take into account where we've been. It's probably thinking about right there, because our tank is empty. And to get through those moments, it's really important if we go, hang on, I'm at my limit here. Probably the first thing to do is to think about how I'm going to rest. You know, a mate of mine, when I used to do bike racing, this guy's still a friend of mine, even now. But he often said, and particularly, like, you know, as each decade went on, he's a bit older than me, that sometimes it's beneficial to stop and have a rest, even though you feel the necessity to keep going. And that was with training. And sometimes physical work, like a trade, manufacturing, it's just as much, we may not think that, but it's an exertion, pretty much like an athlete, except that we're not that fit. In that situation with Elijah, God actually says to him, mate, he doesn't give him a lecture about having a lack of faith. What he says is, mate, it's time to rest. And he actually sends an angel with bread and water so that he can not only physically rest, but have nourishment. Sometimes things can be a spiritual issue, sometimes things can be a physical issue. And it's really important to be able to tell. It's wise to be able to tell the difference between the two. Just remember that Jesus, even himself, while he was on earth, he said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." So, all three persons of God are connected to impart wisdom that can help us differentiate between a spiritual matter and a physical matter, and the direction that we should take. You know, even in the New Testament, Paul, he wrote, you know, he was setting up new churches. You know, people weren't paid back then. They would have been doing all that stuff in their spare time. And he says to the people in the churches to Galatia, we have this record in the book of Galatians in the New Testament, Galatians 9:16. It says, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reach a harvest if we don't give up. So, taking a longer view of things sometimes helps us give ourselves permission to stop and take stock and then move forward. Because when you don't, you think, I've got to get everything done today. I've got to say, even making this video right now, I almost put it off until this afternoon because in my normal job, I've worked overnight and I'm going to do something in between before I go back to work later this afternoon. So if we take a longer view, we still hold on to the goal of what we were trying to achieve. And I've got to say, when God gives you a goal, there's a great sense of purpose that sustains you through the ups and downs of this crazy generation that we've found ourselves in. And it helps us persevere. Perseverance is one of the things that's really spoken of in the Bible. But in closing right now, a bad day doesn't need to shape your life. We all have moments when we want to quit, but if we stop and take stock of where we are, rest, if we need to eat, do that, and keep embarking on what the purpose of life that God has given us. You have a good day and continue to be in a relationship with God. Keep seeking God, and if you're patient enough to listen in all situations, He will come with a solution. God bless you real good.